Responsibility and Opportunities Group is made up of 18 different organizations, of producers, tag manufacturers, data control information people, and including some state or health or federal health officials. We picked about 9 of the proposals made by the state and federal working group to review and give an opinion on en masse. So the items that we've been working on, we put them in a hierarchy such that we could take the ones that we thought were most important to us in the Responsibility and Opportunities group, and then work down through them as they become less important to us. So the first one that we worked on was collection technology position on ADT.2, which is the cattle population covered in the official ID regulations. After having, and this is the statement that came out that was ultimately voted on, after having numerous discussions during multiple teleconference calls concerning the addition of beef bulls and heifers under 18 months of age, RAJ, which is an acronym for the Responsibility and Opportunities Group, is in support of the position, the Animal Disease Traceability State and Federal Working Group, that this sector should be included in a mature ADT system at some point in time. However, not until building blocks of the system, such as an electronic identification system, are in place. Specifically, RAJ takes the position that beef bulls and heifers under 18 months of age, regardless if moving into commerce for breeding purposes or not, should not be added to the current ADT system until a workable EID system is in place. Further, RAJ would agree to adding beef bulls and heifers under 18 months of age that are to be used for breeding purposes into the ADT system upon the following criteria being met. 1, USDA suggests a system of identification, and that the responsibility of identifying beef bulls and heifers under 18 months of age to be used only for breeding purposes falls solely on the seller and or the buyer. RAJ accepts that actual tagging may be accomplished by other than seller or buyer at their direction. Further, USDA to conduct a rulemaking process in the Federal Register with 90 to 120 day comment period that addresses the timing, responsibility, and methodology of adding beef bulls and heifers under the age of 18 months, both for breeding purposes and slaughter, is addressed before introducing these animals into the current ADT system. Under the framework that we have, that statement then was from the RAJ group was then pushed up to the complete cattle traceability working group, and that happened on October 8th of last year. There was a vote taken, and the votes on it were recorded as 17 votes in favor of the statement with 1 opposing vote. The second item that we have worked on is the position on ADT.3, limiting official identification requirements to interstate movements. This was to be voted on April 16th of this year. RAJ opposes, this is the statement, RAJ opposes moving federal authority to interstate commerce. In other words, changing the words movement to the word commerce as the triggering event for livestock being covered as this will increase confusion, in our opinion. Raj supports a bookend system whereby, when possible, covered cattle, those cattle currently required to be tagged under 9 CFR Part 86, are identified to the birth premise. Initially, animals would be voluntarily identified upon leaving the birth premise. Raj further supports federal and state authorities working towards achieving this goal. If at some point following perfection of the identification system for currently covered animals, industry considers mandatory identification to farm of origin upon leaving the birth premise or at an official tagging site, this would require a formal rulemaking process. As I said, that's to be voted on April 16th. The next point that we took on was ADT point 9, which is exemptions for official identification requirements. This is a lengthy one. Raj agrees that exemptions should remain in place. Tagging sites. The State and Federal Working Group proposes maintaining the option to move cattle to a tagging site where they are tagged on behalf of the owner or person responsible. Raj agrees that with the State and Federal Working Group that this exemption should remain in place, as it may provide a means to more efficiently and economically identify cattle. Official identification options, as agreed upon by shipping and receiving states, that's the next item. The State and Federal Working Group proposes removing the exemption that allows alternative methods of identification. Raj is in disagreement with the State and Federal Working Group proposal and believes alternative methods of identification, such as brands, should not be replaced. State health officials' agreements should remain within their discretion. Next point, direct to slaughter movements. The State and Federal Working Group recommends continuing the current exemption allowing cattle to move from ranch/farm direct to slaughter on an official USDA back tag, and retaining the stipulation that requires official identification of cattle moved from the slaughter plant. Raj agrees with the State and Federal Working Group that the exemption should remain in force. The State and Federal Working Group, the next bullet point, the State and Federal Working Group proposes the removal of the exemption of ear tagging cattle moving to slaughter through one approved livestock facility, unless industry, state, and federal officials collaborate to administer specific control protocols to ensure that these cattle move direct to slaughter from the approved facility. Raj proposes that there be no change to the current exemption that recognizes the movement of cattle through approved facilities to slaughter and the requirement for the approved facilities to utilize official back tags. Last bullet point. State and Federal Working Group proposes phasing out official identification exemptions for direct to slaughter movements based on the EID timelines to ensure all cattle covered in the regulation arrive at the slaughter plant with the same technology. Raj is not in favor of the State and Federal Working Group proposal. In summary, Raj supports the continuance of all exemptions that currently exist under 9 CFR Part 86 until such time as state and federal officials provide a uniform set of regulations that demonstrably allow industry to identify cattle in a more economical and efficient manner. We're currently working on, I don't recall the proposal point, but it is on uniformity of state regulations. We're currently working on that proposal and hope to have that out for a vote within the next week.